Side as the equator in a cipher around the planet. Lyrical. Side as the equator in a cipher around the planet. Lyrical.
When you see me holla, hello, I am the gifted fellow out of the crew they call lyrical opposition. I'm moving without precision, pivoting my position is pivotal. With the pen I get rid of the competition. Intentional, then again, accidental. The words impact the mental. I'm back to giving them bars.
Thank you so much for tuning into our Lyrical Assembly broadcast. We're so thankful you're here, and we really hope you enjoyed the footage of the Interfaith Vigil and also our last Reads for Resistance book club recap. Make sure that you stay connected with us through Instagram, Facebook, and all other social medias through Lyrical Assembly.
So as Janet mentioned, we hold these vigils as a way to gather publicly as a faith community. Since 2011, Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity held a monthly vigil in front of the West County Detention Facility in Richmond, a monthly vigil for 7 years to provide a space, a public witness to the families and loved ones that were detained inside. When that contract with ICE was ended, we moved locations to the San Francisco building in downtown San Francisco, the ICE building in downtown San Francisco, to continue to hold that public space and that public witness until the pandemic hit. With this current global pandemic and the ongoing uprisings for Black lives, we are witnessing now more than ever how these systems of immigration and mass incarceration continue to devalue and dehumanize Black and Brown lives. We know this by who is continued to be impacted the most by COVID-19, by loss of employment, by the ongoing police brutality. And as COVID-19 continues to spread throughout our jails, our prisons, our detention centers, and while our decision makers are slow to respond, we as a faith community have a moral obligation to continue to gather in spaces, now virtual, but continue to gather in these public spaces. So we gather today and every month to provide public witness for our interfaith community, to publicly name these injustices that are present in our immigration and incarceration systems, to connect with each other, with families that are impacted by these systems, and to educate, to pray, to sing, to nourish our souls, and to recommit to act until we dismantle these systems. And last, we gather to offer a new vision, a new world of what we want to see, a world in which restorative justice and healing replaces punitive systems, a world that reaches beyond bars and beyond borders, a world full of compassion, a world that honors indigenous lands around the world, and a world where all people are seen for their full humanity. Today, we're joined by a local arts organization, Lyrical Opposition, who also shares this vision and opposes injustice through the lyrical arts. And you'll get to hear from some of their poets and faith folks that they work with. We are also joined today by families that are impacted by these systems, but are actively leading and creating and building a new world that we all long for. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
And we're going to move into our first presentation from Lyrical Opposition, moving to Lacy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here today. I just have a piece about, some issues going on and how they tie to the Christian faith. Let me tell you the story of a mother and her child fleeing in the middle of the night. As the sky turns to darkness and the stillness of the evening settles in, they run, hand in hand, never once looking back. Though the mother knows not where she is going and what will happen next, she knows she cannot stay. Because if she stays, the people who are in power of her city will kill her and her child. Now, let me tell you the story of another mother and her child fleeing in the middle of the night. When the sun finally sets and the city goes to sleep, the mother wraps her arms tightly around her child and they take off, never once looking back. Though she wishes she could stay in the only country she's come to know as home, she knows her home is not safe because the government of her country will kill her and her child. One story, the story of Jesus and Mary, the other story. The story of an immigrant mother and her child, one story. Describing the journey from Bethlehem to Nazareth, the other story. Describing the journey from Central America to the borders of California, both. Stories of a family's desperate pursuit for survival. Over the years, the identity of the Messiah has been distorted. America has turned Jesus into its own corrupt image and used him as a political pawn to uphold white supremacy and xenophobia, when in reality, Jesus was a refugee born to a teenage mother, forced to flee because of state-sponsored violence. Perhaps, if Jesus was born today, he would have been born not in a manger, but in a detention center, surrounded by iron fences and cold stone floors. America has forgotten that Jesus did not bleed the colors of red, white, and blue when he was nailed to the cross. The blood that trickled down his arms was red. The same red blood that pumps through you, through me, through the immigrant and the refugee. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to be moving to an opening prayer from Pastor Cook Davis.
Well, good morning to everyone. I'm so glad to be a part of this beautiful but heartfelt thing. I say this in so many ways before I get started to pray that life is a beautiful mess. We know that life has brought us so much beauty as we look outside, as we deal with this very humid day of today. There's so much beauty that we could take in, but we know that there's been messiness in the world. And because of that messiness, I believe God, along with you guys, are seeds that need to be planted in mess. Come on, that's the best place that you could plant something. So thank you for allowing me and my family and other folks who are part of Lyrical Op to be a part of this. So thank you for just this opportunity. So let's look to the Lord in prayer. I know for a lot of us, we have different, maybe even veins of how we see the Creator. So we'll bow our heads in this way. Creator God, we open our eyes so we can see you in a more excellent way. So we could see you through families, so we could see you through our immigrant brothers and sisters, our family in you. Father, your eyes are looking towards us as we begin to see those who are being incarcerated because of just who they are. God, we ask that you would have compassion, that you would dwell amongst us and hear our cries. Hear the cries of parents, hear the cries of children being separated from parents, hear the cries of those who are being rounded up in raids. Hear our cries as they hear those, that God, that you would hear those who are in detention centers right now. Father, I pray that those who you love, that you would hear their cry. God of justice, you understand what it means to be cast out, to be a brown-skinned immigrant Palestinian Jew. You understand what that feels like. And so, God, we ask that we would stand in the way of those who are trying to create trouble. And with that being said, I love the person who said it's time to get into good trouble. So with that being said, Lord, we ask that we would get into good trouble today. Give us the courage to resist. Give us the courage to say no. Give us the practices that will allow us to fight against unfair laws, unfair contracts, unfair relationships. Give us the strength to stand with and for the people that you love. God, you understand everything that we are leaning into today. With this, God, we know that Jesus, you stand at the borders. You stand with those who are in detention. You stand with those who are incarcerated. Between our world and this world of violence and your new world of love, we ask that you would make yourself present. Guide our hearts, guide our hands, tear down walls so we can embrace our neighbors. We love you for this opportunity to pray. And because of that, God, you said where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, there you would find yourself in the midst. And on this Zoom call, we qualify for your presence. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Let us work. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Kirk, for opening us up. I would like to introduce Christian Bustos, who is the, actually I don't know his title, but the leader, we'll call him, of Lyrical Opposition. So hoping, Christian, that you can give us a little information about the organization.
For sure. I don't mind untitled. I'll be the mysterious title of Lyrical Opposition. Lyrical Opposition is based in San Francisco, California. We're an organization that operates as a community collective that opposes injustice through lyrical arts. Lyrical arts can be hip hop, poetry, black box theater, anything that has lyrical in it and expresses through the arts. We have a few things called Lyrical Academy, which opposes injustice systemically in the educational system and the school to prison pipeline. Like, there's a need for more arts and expression in schools, and we want to change that. It's an injustice that people of color are being taught predominantly Eurocentric history and not being taught their own history and their own ethnic studies. We also have something called Lyrical Assembly, which opposes the corrupt nature within our faith systems. We want to create sacred space through Lyrical Assembly for artists, believers, to build community with like-minded folks who are passionate about doing the work of dismantling white supremacy, patriarchy, xenophobia, and other structural sins of the empire that we live in. We just acknowledge the prophetic power that comes from spoken word, poetry, lyrical arts as a tool to like decolonize faith, speak out against injustice, and have communal healing. And that's what we want to bring today. And just wanted to collaborate, and we're proud to and honored to be collaborating with Interfaith for human integrity, and wanted to be able to help amplify the voices of the voiceless and stand with y'all through this right now. So thank you for having us, and yeah, we're honored to be here.
Thanks so much. We are really excited to be partnering with you today. I'm going to shift back to Gayla King, and I am going to share the screen to support some of the testimony we're about to have.
Great. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Christian and Lyrical Opposition. It's really wonderful to share this space with you and connect to your incredible work of the arts and lifting up injustice through the arts. So I'm going to just share a few words to frame the really powerful testimonies that we'll get to hear today. We are joined by 3 families who've been separated by systems of incarceration and detention. The 3 fathers that you see featured on the slide on the left share a common experience of experiencing and surviving the very inhumane conditions inside one of California's ICE detention centers, Mesa Verde, which is located in Bakersfield, run by a for-profit corporation, GEO. All 3 of these fathers have spent time in Mesa Verde during this pandemic, and they all participated in organizing and advocating on the inside, calling on ICE and GEO to improve conditions, advocating for their own release, along with advocating for the release of so many others. Today, we're blessed to be joined by these families. 2 of the fathers, Charles and Armando, the top 2, have been released and are home with their families, and you'll get to hear from their family. The father on the bottom corner, Asif, is still inside Mesa Verde, and we're blessed to have, I believe his brother has joined us through Zoom. Asif will also be sharing a testimony through phone from Mesa Verde. On the right in the slide, what you see in the top right corner is a heart formation. This is when Charles and both Asif were there. They decided in an act of resistance to form a heart on their yard in Mesa Verde before engaging in a hunger strike as one of the main tools that they have to resist and to push for justice. So they formed this heart, which was captured by outside groups, and then began a hunger strike. And there's been a lot of ongoing advocacy, and the conditions are worsening, which we'll hear from Asif, and you'll see there's a lot of news coverage on this issue. So we encourage you to also look into these news sources. So let's go to the next slide, Janet, and then I'm going to turn it over to Deb. I just wanted to uplift a picture of Asif with his family, his wife, Raquel, and their 2 beautiful daughters. And I now want to turn it over to Deb, who can patch in Asif.
Thanks. Well, we're very honored to have Asif Kazi join us today, and I think his family, so some family members who are also joining the call. So Asif was able to call in from Mesa Verde Detention Facility today. We had scheduled a video chat, but it looks like it was blocked. It worked yesterday, but today it seems to be blocked, but we have his voice here with us today. So I hope you can all hear him, and let me know. Go ahead, Asif, why don't you start talking, and let's see if they can hear you.
It's an honor to speak to you guys today, and I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Steve Cosby. I was born in Bangladesh. Came to the United States when I was 6 years old in 1995. I grew up most of my life in the Bay Area, Berkeley, California, to be exact. And I'm a son, a brother, a husband, a father, and part of Local 378 as an iron worker, which is the Oakland Union for Iron Workers. And I've helped, put in contributions to the, building and help contribute, to building, a greater America. And I'm being detained currently in in Mesa Verde ICE detention facility in Bakersfield. I, unlike a lot of people who came from prisons and county jails, got transferred directly to here. I was detained at an ICE interview while I was free. I was free for the last 3 years, and I was called to an ICE interview, and they detained me for unreasonable reasons. And I've been separated from my family for about 6.5 months. My family's really going through a lot of emotional and financial hardship without me. Just want to say that ICE and GO have no consideration for, family's hardships or, consideration for a human being's health, because the way they're handling the pandemic as a whole, the COVID-19 pandemic, is very poorly handled by them. I would say this is probably the most negligent and inadequate medical care I've ever received in my life in the United States within this facility. And basically, they could have prevented it from spreading, but now this COVID-19 virus is all over this facility, and a lot of people are afraid for their lives. They have very poor sanitary conditions and guidelines, and still it's the same way. This place is impossible to social distance within, and I just want to express that nobody, even prior to the pandemic, deserves to be in this place. We're all here for an immigration matter, which is a civil matter. And a civil matter, if you think about it, it's like if somebody has to be detained or in prison for a civil matter while they're fighting the case, it's like somebody being in prison while they're fighting a traffic ticket, or somebody being in prison while they're doing like a child custody battle in court. Anything civil that you can think of as somebody had to be in prison during the court process. And most of you would think that's outrageous. So a lot of us think this is outrageous as well, that we're being in prison for something that we can go to court for from the outside. This is not a criminal matter. Once again, most of us who have criminal charges have completed sentences or done our due diligence and what we need to do, which the criminal courts have ordered us to do. And we're still having to serve extra time within walls, being treated very poorly and serviced inadequate medical care. And, a lot of people in here have COVID-19 now because this facility did do their part in protecting us from the virus. And I blame ICE and I blame GO, which is the private prison company that runs this facility in Mesa Verde. I really appreciate everybody listening in, and I appreciate the opportunity to have a chance to speak on here. I appreciate all our supporters who support, our cause and our advocacy, and are against this prejudice justice system that we've all, experienced or witnessed. Thank you all, and God bless you, power to the people.
Thank you so much, Asif. I want to thank you for the advocacy that you've done and being courageous and brave to speak out and speak on behalf of dozens others inside Mesa Verde, and to allow your story to be an illustration of what's happening.
Yes.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. We'll also share the links to both the news articles as well as videos that Asif has been able to participate in while he's there to continue to advocate. The next family we want to welcome into this space, Charles Joseph, who many of you may have heard about, has been someone we've been working with, our organization has been partnering with, and his family for for about a year now. We met Charles through his wife and through his mother, who were strong advocates for him when he was directly transferred from prison after serving a 12-year sentence, receiving parole, and then directly transferred into ICE custody, where he was detained at Mesa Verde for 11 months. Through that journey of accompanying his family, accompanying Charles, and even to see his ultimate release from detention and being reunited, we've also witnessed the incredible growth and the strength of his family, and in particular, his wife and his daughters. So we're really blessed to hear a recording, a reflection from one of his daughters, Hope, who's featured there on the far right, who is usually pretty shy to speak, but has so much to say through other forms of expression. So she agreed to provide a reflection and share some of her art. So welcome, Hope.
How do you feel about this whole situation?
I think the hardest part of this journey is thinking of the negatives, like us losing the war that everyone has been helping us fight, and Dad being taken away from me and you, Mom, and Carly. Thinking Carly will grow without enough discipline, and I'm barely matured to look after her and to teach her. It hurts to say, but I'm not really ready for that type of role yet. But with the help of a father figure or another adult to look up to, take some stress off me.
And
that's why I decided to make a poem with the drawing.
so, how do you describe the drawing?
The drawing is of a girl in like pretty warm clothes looking out at like mountains and the sunset.
Why?
Because she's looking towards the future, basically. She's looking towards the future. Could be bright, could be dark. She doesn't know, but she's searching. This is the poem I wrote. Looking at the mountains on my way to see you, not knowing it might be the last time I see you. When we arrived at your jail, we waited and waited for hours in the bipolar weather. And once we got into the building, we had to wait more. Then you finally came out the door. I was happy to see you because we waited for hours and finally you came. We only got 2 hours with you, which went by faster than I thought it would. A few weeks later, I figured out that you might be deported. And in my head, I was imagining Carly ending up like me. A girl that can't express her emotions, and that is going through a lot, watching other girls with their dads, and feeling sad, and soon all the sadness will evolve into anger that she will have to hold in because she doesn't want to hurt anyone.
Thank you, Hope. It's really beautiful to see your artwork and to hear your really deep, powerful reflection. So what you see on the slide now, as we've continued to partner with this beautiful family and other faith leaders, we formed a team called the Heart Action Team to continue to support families that are impacted and to continue to advocate. And we're hoping that that box in the bottom right corner, that will be a Ceph's family's face soon when we get him out as well. So I now want to introduce another family, the one that's centered in the middle. Liz and Bella is their daughter, and Armando is in the far left. Similar to Hope, Bella experienced what it was like to have a father taken away. Armando had been detained by ICE in 2018 while he was working in his garden as part of an indiscriminate ICE raid. He was then detained in Mesa Verde for 26 months until the federal judge ordered his release due to COVID-19 and his vulnerability. While he is home with his family, he still is fighting his immigration case. And we get to hear a reflection from his daughter, Bella.
Hi, my name is Isabel Salgado. My father is Armando Nunez Salgado, has been fighting his immigration case for 2 years now. The uncertainty of not knowing when his case will end makes it so much more stressful. There is no mental note you can make and prepare yourself. All you know is the process is long, but there is no guarantee on whether it will be 6 months or 6 years. You just have to keep waiting till the case is won. And even after you feel the case has come to an end and you get excited for the outcome, it usually ends up getting dragged on. ICE will keep appealing as a tactic to frustrate the immigrants and give up on their cases. Our concern for my dad and his health has pushed us to protest for his release from the ICE detention center. We began to attend protests and advocate for his release. He is finally out with the ankle monitor while his case continues, which helped with the stress that came with the thought of my dad becoming sick with COVID-19, but there is still an uncertainty on how much more time and money it will take to ensure him CAT, or even whether he will win his case. I have faith my father will win his case. My hopes for my father is to watch me graduate and walk the stage. My dad has been absent in most of my life due to incarceration, and because of this, I wish he would have the opportunity to come and watch one of the big moments, a milestone in my lifetime to make up for all the ones he's missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. That was really powerful. We wanted to just lift up Bella's ongoing leadership along with Hope. As you see in the picture on the left, these are two separate public actions that we've coordinated with Bella's family, with Hope's family, in their effort to raise awareness, not just for Armando, but for many others. So you see Liz and Bella holding the hearts. And when Armando was released, he didn't skip a beat from being in the public space. So on the right, you see another action outside of San Quentin where Armando joined to raise his voice in support of others. And there's also in addition to these actions, Hope was there too, alongside Shelley and Carly. And their commitment to not only freeing their fathers, but to others is incredibly wide and really inspiring. So thank you both, Hope and Bella, for sharing your reflections. And now I want to turn it over to one of the poets at Lyrical Opposition, Bailey, who has written a piece inspired by these stories. Welcome, Bailey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Bella, thank you for sharing. It makes me nervous to follow that up because that was definitely really heartfelt. This poem I wrote is called How to Wash Your Hands. This is how you wash your hands. With no soap dispensers, no paper towels, using the same hands you're trying to clean to push cold silver faucet tops, prompting drops of water to clean hands they want to keep dirty. Hands, worn, calloused, fighting systems that present ultimatums, get COVID or get deported. Physical distancing with double-stacked bunks housing cardiovascular issues, chronic respiratory problems, cancer, diabetes, TB, asthma. Pleased to be released, meeting rejection from oppressive systems, Gavin Newsom, Why won't you take on ICE? Suicide meets silence. You might as well have been the perpetrator. This is how ICE washes their hands of responsibility, using the excuse of being negligent in saving lives as paperwork is burdensome. Housing isn't the issue, your control is. Homes have been made by these individuals. They have cultivated love and compassion. Children reach for their parents who starve for their freedom. Why does being with their family have to be a dream? Bangladesh to Berkeley, California bred, 1995 meets 2020, he's been here. A father, a husband, an advocate, liberating people during the worst times in their lives, more than what we can say of this America. Constructed materials to form buildings, bridges, structures, iron worker repairing infrastructure, not just in duty, but in moral compass. When will you respect the value brought by this being? American systems have sold dreams and dimmed lights, stripped rights with fine print detaining 40,000 people for pending court dates. For-profit companies dehumanizing the cries from these people. What do we have to do to make you hear us? Wives and children sacrificing college funds for appeals because the justice system and ICE can't seem to get it together. From the Fijian Islands to LAX, flew here to stay here. The irony to be labeled flight risk only because the system wants to put them on a plane. These flight risks have charted routes in their communities, organizing safety and advocating for health, while ICE denies medical attention to meet the front doors of Mesa Verde. Cold describes ICE. The court has ordered the release of dozens, but we need them to release all. Lift your knees off their necks. The threat is your system. It was never them. The hunger for freedom cannot be a hallucination. Detention for civil matters are becoming death sentences. Carlos Mejia, Chuong Wuong An. How many more will need to close their eyes permanently for you to open yours? Your hands are not clean. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Bailey. We're now going to shift into a time of honoring the memory of the men and women who have died of COVID while in detention or incarceration. We have records from April 11th to August 9th, and during that time, we have notice of 74 people who've died. Cases continue to grow. We heard about Mesa Verde. There are now 34 cases there. The youngest of these was 24 and the oldest was 80. Of those whose ages we know, and there were 39 people who are not named by the system as they share their deaths. And so we enter into this time of silence as we see the names of those who have died. I hope that you'll hold all of these people known to those who love them and hold them in your hearts now and throughout the day. And now I'd like to move on to Deborah Lee, who will talk about our vision.
I want to thank all who have spoken ahead of me and shared their powerful leadership and words, and want to remind us of where we're moving towards together as a people in solidarity. So I would invite you just to, you can close your eyes or just hold this as a vision in your own heart of where we are heading. Can we imagine a California where the full humanity and full participation of every person in our state is honored and valued, where everyone gets to thrive, where daughters and sons wouldn't have to worry about their parents being taken from them, or worry about how they're going to care for and raise their younger siblings. This would involve a process where the wrongs and inequities of the past are addressed, reparations paid, and a new, profoundly radical way of relating to one another leads us forward. This would mean a reversal of the disinvestment and barriers to the thriving and economic wealth building of Blacks, Indigenous, and people of color in this country. It would mean supporting Black lives to thrive for the long haul, which would help everyone else thrive too. This would mean a process where institutions that perpetuate the existing power relations are dismantled, and imagining new ways of solving problems and supporting people. It would mean eliminating carceral and military answers to social problems. It would mean decarceration and repairing the generational harms that have been created. It would mean wholeheartedly addressing the root causes of oppression and impoverishment, investing in safety and security by fulfilling human needs such as housing, education, healthcare, a sustainable planet, meaningful work, and beloved community. Investing in processes of healing and restoring people, repairing relationships, and becoming a culture of nonviolence and love. A world where wherever you live, you can live a dignified life, where your skin color, religion, class, immigration status, gender, sexual orientation, past history wouldn't be a barrier or cause of inequity, because there is enough dignity for all, and there is enough abundance to be shared. A world where no one is forced to migrate or leave their homes because of eviction, desperation, displacement, or violence, where people have the right to stay home and the right to flourish, where migration happens as a choice and not an act of desperation and survival. And when it happens, the newcomer is received and supported and treated the same as the native born. Immigration detention no longer exists, and immigration laws serve the well-being of people and the wholeness of families, not profit or corporate interest. A world where no one is stigmatized, excluded, diminished, incarcerated, locked away, thrown away, sent away. A world where everyone is cherished and treated as sacred. A world that promotes the restoration of humanity, believing that we are all worthy and capable of redemption, rehabilitation, and radical inclusion. Where the economy and government promote equity, the improvement of the quality of life, and the common good. A world that acknowledges the intrinsic ways that we are interconnected and accountable to one another across bars and borders, and co-responsible for our collective future. This world is possible. May it be so.
Thanks so much, Deb. We're going to move now into our calls to action. So I'll bring back Gayla King.
Great. Whew. Well, let's continue to hold that vision of what is possible for our future, and to continue to be led by Bella and by Hope and by Asif, who are leading us to that world. There are two ways that we can support these families that we uplifted today. Charles Joseph, while safely home with his family, is not completely safe from the clutches of ICE. A governor's pardon would actually be the way to restore his legal status and allow him to permanently stay with his family in Sacramento instead of being deported back to Fiji, as the government is trying to do. So join us on August 30th at 2 o'clock. We're going to have a Charles Joseph Community Forum to talk about his story. You're going to see a premiere of a short film that our organization, our Dream SF Fellow, has been making with Charles, and join our campaign. So that's on August 30th. Asif, who you heard, who's currently in Mesa Verde, one way we can show our support is to write a letter of support for him that will be presented to the immigration judge. So if you were moved by his words and his story, contact me and we'll get you a template so that you can write a letter of support and we can all work to bring Asif home. So as Charles is one story of someone who experienced this egregious act where people who serve their time in prison and jails, who are already deemed eligible for release to go home to their families and loved ones, are directly transferred to ICE. The governor has the power to stop that today, and we invite you to join us. We're going to be meeting with the governor's office on Tuesday, a small faith delegation, and we're inviting a broad virtual prayer to take place at the same time to lift up the prayers that his office will hear and open up to these stories and really to stop the ICE transfer. So please join us virtually next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And we wanted to lift up two other stories of loved ones, community members who are currently in state prison, who are eligible for release, been deemed safe to return home. And the concern is that ICE will transfer them as well. So we want to lift up the call to prevent ICE from detaining these loved ones and allow them to come home. And last, we just wanted to lift up, as been mentioned, the impact of COVID-19 is really difficult, especially for communities that don't have access to these federal stimulus. So we have a fund, an emergency migrant fund, where we can more readily get funds out to families that aren't able to access other resources. And we've been able to provide 40 small grants through this fund because of the generosity of you all in our community. So we're just putting in another pitch. If you have some ability to donate to this fund so we can quickly get it out to communities, immigrant communities, please do. And communities just impacted by detention and incarceration.
Thanks, Gayla. And links to all those are in the chat if you're looking for more details. And I'd like to now reintroduce Pastor Kirk to do our closing prayer.
All right, guys. Hello again. First of all, everything was totally beautiful and amazing. And man, thank you guys. This was also enlightening to me as well. So I'm so grateful for this time. And I would like to even say whatever we could do on this side as well as in solidarity. We want to participate with you. So I know I'm on to pray and I'm about to pray again, but I'm going to be with you and stand with you in this. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We acknowledge, I believe it was the 74 people in the midst of quarantine that have passed away and died. We ask that we stand with the families of those who that life affected. Even though we speak of a life, we know that life is not lived alone and it's lived in community. Father, we ask that we, along with others, would see them as fully human, as that they deserve their names to be said. For the 39 who are unknown, it feels weird to just say unknown. God, we speak and we want to say their names. God, I ask that you would begin to help us on reversing all the laws and contracts and all the things that have this broken system, and maybe not so broken, the system that is doing exactly what it's set in line to do, is to hurt the poor and the marginalized. We ask that you would build in us more of a case to help uproot oppression in this way. Father, we still want to call on you to help us. That this community, this vigil, this group of people, that we will still become and still be seen as the beloved community. Father, I ask that you would break the hands of the oppressor, that you would break white supremacy, that, Father, that you will continue to decolonize this country. And that, Father, that you would even help us with what does it mean to have reparation because of that, to set stuff back into place. Father, where there has been reconciliation in some places, but not really true conciliation has never really even happened. God, I ask that you would bring us back to a place where we will see everyone as worthwhile humans, to love each other, to embrace each other, to see men as fathers, sons, husbands, to see women as mothers and daughters, to see their lives. Thank you for all those who have spoke today. Thank you for those who are who have shared their gift. But I do ask that you be with those who couldn't speak today, that they were voiceless today, to be with the men who made the heart shape in the prison yard, to be with them. God, I ask that you would help us to break down this empire that continues to dehumanize people. That we will remember that we are the Imago Dei, that we are image bearers. So, great Creator, we love you. Strengthen us, encourage us for this work. You have wired us for this time. We thank you now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Kurt. We do believe in the power of prayer. We're praying down these systems and praying up new ones. Thank you for the prophetic words that were spoken. I hope that you all felt that. I know these are heavy times and heavy issues we're all grappling with. But I hope that you have felt a sense of power, the power of the young and their truths coming out, the power of the creative lyrical words that were shared with us today. Asif is still with us here. Asif is still there? Yeah, and I want to see if you would like to give any closing words, just being able to hear all this, and any last thoughts you have.
I want everybody to know that, God is what he wants from us to help others, in time of need. That's one of our duties that we got to uphold. And all of this is a progressive battle. Nothing changes within a day or two. Even when we advocate within here to do hunger strikes and to do any type of protest, there are people that, are tainted by impatience, and they expect change within a day or two. And I always have to remind certain people that change doesn't come in a day or two, although we'd love for that to happen. Change takes time, and it's always a progressive battle. It's something you have to continuously keep effort on and keep pressure on. You got to keep pressure on these people for change. You can't let up. My sincere messages, go out to my request and message goes out to the governor, Gavin Newsom, and Attorney General of this state. I'm urging them to make a change to this current situation, not just within ICE detention, but also within the prison system and within our unjust and prejudiced criminal justice system. That there can be some changes made, and there's a lot of work still to do. And for anybody that believes the governor, if he tells you that it's not up to him, it's totally within his power. Anything within his state is within his power. So he's very capable. My family's a big supporter of the governor, and I don't think he's done so much wrong. It's just I don't feel like he's done enough. And that's just what I want to say. My main thing is please, for the people who don't see changes right away, it's a progressive battle. Don't let up. You got to keep applying pressure. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. So we will be meeting with the governor's staff on Tuesday, and I invite everyone to join us again for a time of prayer at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. I want to mention two things. One, today is Janet Katari's last vigil with us in her role as hopefully not her last vigil, but her last vigil is in her role as the pastoral seminary intern with us, where she has been with us for a year, and primarily responsible for organizing all of these monthly vigils, engaging many of you, sending out the beautiful announcements, getting you to volunteer, helping you to help lead us. And so I just want us to show our appreciation to Janet. Can we spotlight Janet for a second? Let's see, how do we do that? There she is. So I really want to give our love and appreciation to Janet for a remarkable year that she has given us. And yeah, I think many of our lives have been touched. We'll be honoring Janet next Friday at 11 and her departure, and we'll be sending out something that all of you could send her a message and blessing in her next step of journey, which is really ordination in the Lutheran Church. And so, we have a wonderful ministry career ahead of you, and we're so glad to have been part of this stage of your journey, and for all the wealth and knowledge you brought to us. Thank you. Thank you. And so want to just let you know, next month, hope you can join us next month. We will be focusing on the situation in Adelanto, the largest immigration detention facility in California. And so that will be the topic next month. And some of the faith leaders in the Inland Empire, some of the interfaith leaders will be helping to lead that vigil. So blessings, go in peace, everyone. And may your hearts be lifted, and in solidarity. And Asif, we thank you for joining us, and Bella and Hope as well. And we'll hold all the richness that you've given us in our hearts today. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for our latest installment of Second Sundays. This week, Second Sundays will be live at 11 a.m. with Kairos. If you're interested in attending or performing, please send us an Instagram message at Lyrical Assembly. Things to look out for. Our friends at Lyrical Ones has a live podcast every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Twitch. It will be available every Friday at 7 a.m. and it's on all streaming platforms. Be sure to take a listen. Our Read for Resistance book club meets every Saturday at 9 a.m. We're currently reading The Cross and the Lynching Tree. If you want to get connected with Lyrical Assembly and join our community, please text the number 415-903-7699.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Reads for Resistance recap. So last week we read chapter 5, which is, we're almost done. Ashley's dog is out here agreeing with us. And last week we read chapter 5. So this week we're doing a little review and recap of chapter 5. That chapter is titled Mary, Don't You Weep, and it talked a lot about Black women during the time of lynching and then their role in the Black resistance for civil rights as well.
Yeah.
So Ashley, go ahead. What were your thoughts on that chapter?
I really appreciated, because I feel like the book has been so great, right? And they talk about all these powerful and amazing men, right?
Yeah.
And really we see a whole chapter devoted to the experience of Black women and just women in general and what they've done for the movement. He basically is talking about the civil rights movement, and then even womanist theologians, which I literally can't name one off the top of my head because it's just not available, right? So I really appreciated this chapter, and I was writing down names woman theologian Jacqueline Grant, Dolores Williams, and then also acknowledging Ida B. Wells, right? The journalist who basically kind of told America what lynching really looked like. And also the kind of horror that Black women went through. They talk about how Mary Turner was lynched trying to protect her family. I think our first imagery, if we're talking about someone being lynched, it's a Black man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they all talk about like Black women were lynched too, just for trying to protect their family. They felt that that was resistance and they should die for that, right?
Right.
And then also what really stood out to me was the poem Strange Fruit, which is by this German or
The Jewish? Yeah, the Jewish author. Or the Jewish, poet.
The Jewish author Abel Mirapol. And he made a poem called Strange Fruit. And before this, I didn't know that was a poem, you know? I'm only familiar with Billie Holiday's rendition of Strange Fruit and how pivotal that that like song and how it felt and how it was. And he wrote that because of the lynching that he saw, right? So it wasn't just because of his culture, but I think honestly the reason why he was able to identify with it so well was because of he had this like shared pain and suffering from his culture, and he was able to empathize. Like we talked about my guy Niebuhr, who just couldn't do it, right? He didn't have the eyes to do it. He couldn't actually get in there.
Right.
And you see this other guy who basically was a school teacher, and he was able to write this masterpiece of a poem. And Billie Holiday got a hold of it, and she started putting it in her sets. So imagine you're going out to a concert, right? And you're like, oh, it's going to be great. And then someone's like singing with their whole soul about lynching, you know? And I feel like that definitely takes some like bravery for her, for sure, because I imagine most people don't want to see that, right? They want to kind of do what they want to do, or they want to just enjoy and have a good time and have some escapism when they're seeing a show. So for that to be happening like on a live concert experience is pretty wild. Yeah, so I think that was two things that I really got out of it. And then also as a person who is in seminary right now, and who is a woman and who is Black, I really like this. It's like an encouragement that you don't have to choose like your faith or your Blackness or your womanness, right? You can do all of these things together and it can be excellence. And you don't have to like be put into a box. And I really like this quote, and it just says, like, Black people did not need to go to seminary and study theology to know that white Christianity was fraudulent.
I love that quote too. So good.
Right? It's like, I was literally having a conversation with my cousin this weekend and was like, we never worship white Jesus. Like, never. Who can worship white Jesus? Literally only white people, basically, right? And I think that the gospel is a message of hope and of care and love. And if you're already alienating so many people, I think it's just flawed, right? Like, if there's no space for me in your system, then why would I join it? You know? What did you think from this chapter?
I think this is not related to the chapter, but one thing I thought of when you brought up Billie Holiday was how, like, I feel like there's similarities between Billie Holiday singing about lynching and then like Meg Thee Stallion calling out Attorney General, what's his name?
Daniel Cameron, I think.
Of Louisville, Kentucky, talking about the murder of Breonna Taylor. I feel like there's some similarities there just because Meg Thee Stallion used her platform to speak up against that. And like, obviously he was like this is uncalled for, but I think there's just something really powerful about like artists using their platform, but I think also for Black women, because I feel like it's a lot riskier. I feel like as a Black woman in the industry, you have a lot more to lose. So for her to use her platform when she was already going through stuff with like Tory Lanez and all that different stuff, like I think that's really powerful that she took the space to highlight like that issue. And then in terms of talking about the chapter, I think for me, I was just really like you, I think I really enjoyed reading about Black women and Black women theologians, because a lot of the stuff I know about Black resistance and Black history is only males. Like there was this list of like Black female like civil rights leaders, and I'm like, outside of this list that's mentioned in this chapter, I think I only know like Rosa Parks, and like that's really sad because
So sad.
and I honestly, I'll be honest, I never took the intention or the time to think like, oh, like who's been left out of the narrative, you know, until it was highlighted.
Yeah, but I think it's like it's so hard to be educated in this system, right? Because everything is kind of like patriarchal in nature, and so you have all these, and I'm also a teacher, right? So you have all these women teachers, right? And we are all teaching the material that men created, and we're highlighting these men, and I'm just like, wow, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can teach them, but only the information that we give you. And so I'm just like, it really makes me want to do research and then share it with other people, because I feel like, as sad as it is, if you don't see someone doing it, you're not going to kind of feel like you can do it, or there's even a possibility. Like I talk to some of my friends and we talk about how like when you're a young kid, you have like 5 options for your career, right? It's like teacher, doctor, firefighter, lawyer, and cop, right? And we look at today, like if you look at your friend circle, those 5 of your friends, they don't have none of those jobs, right? Because the pool was so small and no one was telling us like, hey, you know, work shouldn't feel like the worst thing ever. And you should love your job. You should like what you're doing. You should have a purpose in your job. And I think, if I never seen like, you know, I grew up Kojic, so women weren't even allowed to like step in the pulpit.
Yeah.
So it's like, but you see women who are basically the majority of the church. So without the women of the church wouldn't even exist. Without the women tithing, the church would not exist. But it's just, it's a lot.
Yeah. There's a quote in this chapter that says women are the spine of the movement, which I thought was really powerful.
Yeah, and relevant to today too.
Yeah. It's just, I think like a society, I don't know. So I think when we talk about society, like society is only as good as how well the systems care for the most vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that goes to how we care for women. Like I think our society is only as good as how it takes care of its women. And that includes like all women, like women who are white, Black, Asian, any race, any gender, trans. Like it's only good as how well we take care of those people. And right now our society's failing. Like it gets a big F in that department. So
I would agree for sure.
Yeah. And then also I felt like there is something really, I don't know. Like we also talked about on Saturday how during the time a lot of like Black mothers had to suffer and endure a lot. So this chapter highlighted how at the time like Black mothers were suffering greatly because of their a lot of it was their sons and their like husbands getting, and I felt like, and then Pastor Kirk shared something really powerful where he says like his wife, who is also a Black woman, has to remember what her son wears when he leaves the house in case she has to identify him later on. And I think that was just so like jarring to hear, that I'm sure women back during this time had to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. And the sad thing is it's a different method, but it's the same reasoning, right? Because the general public doesn't value Black life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something we also talked about that was, or so a theme that's still been coming up a lot is in our book clubs is like when do we stop trying to get the system to almost like care about us, and when do we create something new?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really powerful. That's been brought up a lot. That I'm still wrestling with too. That's like honestly the biggest question that this book series has left me with.
Yeah.
Is like, how much do we create something new, and then how much do we spend time advocating within the system to get them to care about us?
Yeah. I wonder, are we capable of doing that simultaneously, or does it have to be like two groups sectioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have some hope or you have some experience with the system, so you're able to build it up in a different way than if I say like I don't really have this experience with the system, then I just can create my own. But I think also what we touched on in our discussions are, it's really hard for us to even have an imagination of new things because we've been in the system so long, and it's pretty much like you have like PTSD, you have anxiety, you have all these different things that are happening. Like even though we're doing a book club about lynching right now, like we're living through a pandemic right now still, and over 200, I think 10,000 people have died, right? So it's like, how do you take away time to really like recharge and have this reimagination of what life could be like?
Mm-hmm.
I know one of the people shared in group who's a father, how he has a young child, I think she's about like 4 or 5, of how like he needs to change his thinking because he doesn't want his daughter to step outside. He doesn't want to have to memorize her outfit. He doesn't want to have to be like, all right, the patriarch is going to try to eat you up every day, you know? And it's like, how much can we start to really decide of a new system, or not even a system? Yeah, it does have to be a system. But how much, like, what does it take, and what does it call for to even get into a space of brainstorming, right? Because I think right now it's like, oh, well, and what I see a lot of is, let's just make the systems that we have Black and it'll be okay. And it's like, no, it would just be another flawed system ran by Black people. So I don't really like that idea. Like, I know, yeah, like I think even right now they're trying to do like a Black Wall Street in San Francisco. And I have not looked into it, but I was like, oh, a Black Wall Street in San Francisco. Interesting. So like, I don't know if that's a reimagination of something or if that's just literally Wall Street, but Black.
Yeah. And then you have to ask, like, is recreating capitalism actually going to help
anyone? Is it going to help us? Is it going to help the people that we're trying to protect, save, make a better life for?
Yeah, that's very true. Another thing brought up was like how, that I thought was really interesting, was how like how not angry people are with these systems.
Mm-hmm.
So someone brought up that like few people brought up that they were like, why do these things not infuriate us? I think the issue is like people don't really understand how violent white systems can be, and like they're not infuriated enough. And it's just kind of jarring how like it takes like all, it's still to this point, to this day, where like people aren't mad enough. Like, why is it that like one person has to get shot by the police? Like, why couldn't that be enough for us to be like, okay, the police system is flawed, let's create something else, you know? Like, why does it have to take so many people, so many Black folks, so many people of color to get shot by the police? And it even took up to like what, like this past year for people to remotely agree with the concept of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, and some people are still like, oh, I don't support the movement. I'm like, bro, there's two different things happening here. It's saying Black Lives Matter as like a fact, but I think maybe that's the problem. We're saying, hey, we're saying this is a fact. Do you agree? No, there's no place for you not to agree. I think maybe that's the thing. Like, I think we've created so much comfortability with our oppression that anything else is uncomfortable and like unnecessary. We don't need to
radical. It's just radical.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, Black Lives Matter. Are you implying that all lives don't matter? I'm like, no, literally, we're being killed right now.
Yeah.
Still, like, and I don't know. I really like history, so like it like pisses me off when you see as a country the alienation of Black, brown, Native people for so long and be like, nah, but it's cool. Like the system is literally like, I watched a video because I'm like getting older, right? I want to own a home and I live in San Francisco, so that's really hard. And so I watched like a video trailer that outlined how systematically they made it so Black people could not own homes. And then once you could own a home, you had to live on the other side of the track. And then it just reminds me that my mom, she grew up in San Francisco. Her mom is from Louisiana. And she said, yeah, we always lived on the right side of the track. And so when I remembered that and hearing the video, I'm like, so literally everyone knew what this was, but they didn't know what it was, you know? Like they observed it in real life, but they did not know the ramifications. Like even to this day, you'll have like a Black family try to sell a house and get an appraisal and it'll go down by $100,000 if you can see a Black family lives here. And then it was like two separate occasions this year. Like one, the lady was Black, and so I think she just got she didn't talk to the person, and so she got the same person to do the appraisal and went up $100,000. Then another, it was like a family, and so they took down their family photos, and it went up like $150,000. And I'm like, so then these people did the crazy thing or the really hard thing of owning a home, and you're still trying to undercut them. Or if there's hella Black people in the neighborhood, your market goes down. Like, oh, we gotta wait for gentrification to come so our market value can go up. It's just like every turn, it's always some BS.
Yeah. And no one gets mad about like.
No, they're like
angry.
Yeah, just try to go in a different. Like, I don't understand. And then it's like, bro, the only reason why you're even capable of being in that neighborhood is because of the generational wealth your parents got because they were allowed to buy some things.
Yeah.
You know? Like, even I think I was watching the debates last week, and I think Biden talked about how like his mom or his parents were able to create generational wealth with their home, and that's how they were able to go to school. And it's like, yeah, that's like the idea of what you're supposed to be able to do. But Biden's also a white man. So yeah, that's why it worked out well for him, you know? Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. But anyways, those are just some of our thoughts about this last week's chapter. I think, again, this book has been such a blessing because it ties back into our current time so well. It speaks to our time right now. So, unfortunately, this week is our last Reads for Resistance book club series, only for this book, The Cross and the Lynching Tree. We're going to be continuing to do more books afterwards, but this is our last week. So if you're interested in coming, you still can, because we're going to do a recap. So you can just hear a whole recap of the last, like the whole book series with our group. But yeah, it's on every Saturday at 9 a.m. And yeah. Make sure you check
it. Get into it.
Yeah.
Should put that in the whole frame. Oh, look at that. James H. Cone. Okay.
Thank you so much for following us and for tuning into our Lyrical Assembly broadcasts. We're so thankful you're here, and we're thankful to be a part of this community together. Make sure you stay connected with us through our Discord number. You can text that number to connect with us through our community server on Discord, and you can also stay connected with us through Lyrical Assembly on all social media, such as Instagram, Facebook. You can just Google @Lyrical Assembly. Thanks so much, and make sure you tune in next time.
Side of the equator in a cipher around the planet. Lyrical. Side of the equator in a cipher around the planet. Lyrical.
When you see me holla hello, I am the gifted fellow out of the crew they call lyrical opposition. I'm moving without precision, pivot in my position is pivotal. With the pen I get rid of the competition. Intentional, then again accidental, the words